This is Jim Ziegler. This is the Dawg Pound. I still need some music. Anyway, okay, guys, we are live on the air. The Dawg Pound, subprime finance. Now, we used to call these people derogatory names: bogues, drecks, roaches, credit criminals, get me dones. But now we're talking about credit challenged, equity impaired. And there's
we call it 2021.
Oh, we're in 2022 right now. Yeah, I mean it's big.
That's the layover from it.
Exactly. I don't think anybody is equity impaired now.
Not yet.
Honestly, I was reading the other day and it brought the subject up. Delinquencies and defaults are up 14% because of the pandemic, and I've got some experts on with us today. We're going to talk about it, starting with Fred Subprime Hero Lennartz. Hey, Fred, how you doing?
Man, living life, happy. It's 2022, ready to go and talk about the subject because it's passionate of mine. Obviously, the subprime hero, it's me. I'm an advocate of that type of business, those people. A quick stat I want to throw out there, it's back in 2019, 16% of people were 600 or below. That was here in the United States, 16%. 2 years later, it already jumped up to 25. That's in 2021. I'm telling you right now, that is not going to stop. It's getting
25%. 25% of people have a credit score under 600.
Right now, that is what Consumer Reports state, and that is crazy as of 2021. And we're seeing that happen more and more and more through defaults. You talked about it was 14%. Crazy, right? So we're going to see that go up, and that's just in automotive. We're talking. Yeah. In a grand scheme.
Well, save it for right now. We got a lot of discussion ahead of us. Let me introduce the rest of the crew. Directly from Moscow, Russia, my friend, the mad Russian himself, Matt. Max, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Another day in paradise.
Where are you today?
I'm in Spain.
Okay, you're in Spain. This guy, you don't know where he is. He's like Waldo. Where's the guy? Is he in Spain? Is he in Pennsylvania? He's got a residence in New York. I think he lives in the Kremlin. I mean, so Max, you ready for the subject?
Listen, the best thing about the pandemic is that I learned to work remotely.
Yeah.
So I can do this anywhere, as long as, there's Wi-Fi. You're not going to see me on a plane unless, life or death depends on it.
Now, one of the foremost dealers in the world, maybe the universe. I'm talking about, I have been to this dealership. It is a juggernaut. I have worked with these guys back in the 90s and the early 2000s. My friend, Matt Lasco. Hello, Matt.
Good afternoon, Jim. Pleasure to be on here with you. And you always got something to say that's just a little bit more than I could probably live up to, but I appreciate the kind words.
These guys are absolutely cutting edge. I mean, if there is a new trend, they are right on the crest of the wave. I'm telling you. Matt
really
Lasco,
looking forward to the conversation.
How long have we known each other? We go back. We got 20 years.
So Jim, you might remember this, but we actually met in like 1998 at one of your Grand Rapids, Michigan State of the Union or battle plan, whatever you called it way back then. And I was like a 20-year-old desk kid learning everything. And I stole all your ideas from, who was the big dealer you were with down there years and years ago? Len Hickey Dodge. And I brought them all back to Michigan and started our little Ford store run based on stuff you had done 15 years before. And
set the Guinness Book of World Records in 1994, Len Hickey Dodge.
Yep, pretty cool deal.
Amazing. And now the queen of BDC. I'm talking about a woman who's done every executive job in a car dealership. She couldn't be with us today, but we did get Bobbie.
Such a brat. You know what? I'll co-sign that. My best friend is brilliant, and Jennifer Briggs wishes she could be here with us today, but she's off being brilliant. Things are great over here. I'm checking out. Matt's got this great beard going on. Like it. Well done. Well done. It's nice to see everybody today. I'm not feeling awesome, so if I'm quiet today, that's probably why.
Well, I'm going to go back to Matt Lasco for a second. I want to go back to Matt. Let's talk some business here. Matt, how much subprime are you doing at Lasco Ford?
Well, it's funny, like Hero said, if you call anything below a 620 subprime, you're up over 50%. We've got, you know, 2 different Mitsubishi dealerships in the Ford store, and we do a lot of used car volume. So what we've kind of noticed is it's almost in Hero, you may have seen this. You have the 620 and below, but the gap of the middle buyer is kind of vanished. It's either really, really good credit, or we're kind of fighting a challenge type of credit. And that's at all 3 stores, new and used car buyers. So very unique. We have to have subprime mentality on every car deal we look at, kind of as we approach them, all the exact same. If you got great credit, we'll work it to what we can do to make you happy. But there's kind of a bump in the road somewhere for most customers walking through the door.
Well, let me ask Fred a question. Fred, how many dealerships are you working with right now?
Total right now, about 15.
About 15 dealerships. And what are you experiencing?
That exact same thing that Matt just talked about, an increase in subprime. A lot of people and a lot of these dealers hired me because they didn't have any kind of subprime going on. They're trying to increase their bottom line. And really, at their heart, what I love is they're trying to help their community, because they're seeing their community struggle and they want to find a way to be able to help them. And it starts with, like you mentioned earlier, changing your language. No more calling people bogues. Don't call them dirtbags. You got to start treating them like human beings. And when you treat everybody the same, when they walk in, like you want to give everybody a chance, you want to help everyone, it increases everything, the positivity, the work. But yeah, exactly what I see going on at these stores right now.
Max, what do you see in the market?
You know, Jim, I think at least I operated, you know, all my adult life thinking that every third American has bad credit. Whether it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or now. And what I see is that there are 2 types of dealers. There are dealers that are willing to get their hands dirty and do these type of deals and chase, you know, stips, you know, and work the phone, work the analyst at the bank. And then there are other dealers that don't want to bother, right? And I think because of that type of a dealer, you have the entire buy here, pay here industry. Right, because dealers don't want to bother. Many of them, especially highline dealers, you walk into.
I have heard, Max. I have heard from dealers. I don't want those people in my dealership, and
right.
They're already there.
Man, they're your family. They're your friends.
Right, but imagine walking into a Mercedes store, right, with a 620 credit score. They don't know what to do with you. They have no idea what to do with you. They're just going to say, listen, you gotta go and try a Toyota dealer next door, you know?
Let's talk about that a second.
Quick question, though, first, because I just want to ask Matt and Hero. I'm seeing more in dealerships of the subprime credit scores coming from the debt to credit ratio more than I am from the default as a percentage of increase. Are you guys seeing the same thing? Because I'm looking at 720s that are 610s all day because they're running out of credit for
Bobbie, in credit, the 4 C's of credit are basically, the capacity is the #1 reason deals are turned down, with subprime or prime. Capacity,
right, no, I know.
Ability to repay the loans, the debt.
So Bobbie, let me ask you this, because I wonder if it's a little bit more of the. So we watched a market go up. I was sitting with one of my guys that was talking about he's trying to just buy a used car under $20,000, and I was trying to explain that. Unfortunately, those they're just less and less and less. So is it because, you know, incomes have gone up decent? I've seen it through our entire corporation, every level, but the cost of vehicle has made such a massive increase that I feel like part of that debt to income challenge that you're running into is capping out, because what used to be affordable pre-owned vehicle is not in the gap from new to used is so far away that I do feel like that there's a massive debt push on
debt to income for sure. But I'm saying debt to credit ratio. I'm saying we're seeing
I know what she's asking.
Drop significantly because of the debt to credit ratio, which is 30+%
I agree.
of the score.
I think that you're right, Bobbie. I think your observation, which you've been noticing, the case studies, I'm sure, whatever it is, it's true. You know, you're starting to see people, they took on a lot of debt with their credit cards over the last couple of years.
Right, so especially these small business owners and highline stores. We're seeing it a lot. And I just wonder if it's everywhere in the country.
Debt load is the #1 negative scoring points on any bank's scoring system.
There's no doubt.
When I was working with Ford Motor Company years back, it blew my mind that somebody that owned their home for 10 years got 5 points on the credit scoring system out of 120. If you had cash down, a cash down on the other hand would score as many as 30 points toward the 120. So the imbalance in the scoring system, but it was always the capacity of the customer to repay the loan, debt ratio. Right. And when banks do a debt ratio, they generally take 60% before they even start to compute the debt ratio.
Yeah, I'm talking about actual credit scoring models for like TransUnion or Experian or Equifax that are, we're seeing a significant drop in people under 620 in score who aren't actually a subprime customer, but are by the standard of scoring, because we've got all these small business owners that have taken on credit card
loans. It all comes into the score. It affects
right, exactly.
The score.
So I'm wondering if everybody's seeing that everywhere, and if we think that's part of why we're seeing such a rise, or if it is truly all due to default.
I think it's a little bit of all of it. I think that you're seeing it happen extremely fast right now. And like I said, we're just seeing the beginning of it all. It's going to increase.
Let's get to some substance in this conversation. What I want to talk about right now, what lenders are buying subprime? Who's buying right now? Because the three top subprime lenders right now are Santander, Credit Acceptance, and get this, Toyota Financial. Toyota Financial is the third largest subprime holder.
Toyota came to win there.
Toyota's in it to win. They're buying subprime. Now, people say, well, subprime. Well, you look at drive time. The Garcias became billionaires not from Carvana, but from their drive time holdings. So when you look at how subprime is so huge, and Hero brought it out earlier. So what lenders are out there, Hero?
I could tell you my favorites. There's a lot of them out there, but if you want to get super deep, but not quite as deep as CAC is, Credit Acceptance, you want to get down to I think Arrivo, they're amazing. They're not in every state because they're out of Utah. There's Prestige Financial doing really good. Consumer Portfolio Services, CPS, they are killing the game. They were really good 5 years ago, kind of stepped away. It was weird. And then
that's a portfolio lender.
Correct.
CPS. Okay. People have to understand there's four kinds of lenders involved in subprime. You've got banks, finance companies, and you've got portfolio lenders, and you've got brokers. Sure. Don't do business with a broker. But those are the four that are in it. So portfolio, you said CPS was hot a couple of years ago, and then they died out. Then they came back.
But they're back, and they're buying deep, back end, front end, all of it, and they're really helping the community with subprime. They're big, and they're in a lot of states, and I love them a lot.
Well, the thing about CPS or any of the portfolio lenders, they go to Chicago or one of the exchanges, and they get a whole bunch of investor money. They're investment driven, and they say they got $40 million. They go through that $40 million, and now they're out of business. All of a sudden, the portfolio lender's buying hot, and all of a sudden they disappear.
Yeah.
Then they come back. So that's how all that works. Matt, what do you experience? Who's buying for you?
So we kind of lean on volume, and some of the lenders that we can hang, especially like the better subprime deals, are our larger volume people, the Capital One, the Ally Bank. I try to bring this up, and I would say Fred's on point with the fact that yes, there are Santanders and CACs and First Investors and CPS and Prestige. They're there, but for the dealers we're trying to talk to, the ones that are a little bit afraid to get into subprime, they're using banks that will deliver subprime, and that would be probably where I would say we do a really good job. Then you also gain the ground with some of those other lenders when you are winning new car deals, getting some volume with that subprime deal, and as a whole, you become more of a powerful dealer to them.
Exactly. Yeah. So do you have a separate subprime department, Matt, or is everybody all hands on deck?
We are all hands on deck. We have a little bit different setup at the two Mitsu stores because we do some direct marketing for subprime, but our Ford store is everyone's treated the exact same. We do a needs analysis with everyone when they enter the building, and then we just work them towards the proper vehicle and the proper finance situation that's good for them and the dealer. And we're well 5, 6, 8, 10 years into that scenario where we don't have the old subprime manager anymore. All the desking managers from new to used can do a 720 lease or a deep subprime Santander, or every one of the stores can do a CAC deal. And you don't miss something in that way. I feel like the handoff part, and I see Fred shaking and pumping his fist for me. The handoff part is where you miss some of the low-hanging fruit. This guy didn't quite hang it in new cars. He passed it off to someone in subprime. Subprime guy was already working a deal, and now a customer snuck out of the building on us or something like that. Right. So we've eliminated that and really went all hands on in the scenario where we embrace a car deal and a car loan, whichever scenario lands in front of us.
Yeah. I love that. You're a marathon. You're not a sprinter. And I love that, because to me, that's exactly how it needs to happen. That's powerful. That's for your community. That's for the people. I know it's different, but it's truth. You want to talk about future sales. Huge. That person who didn't get shifted to 3 different people and put away for an hour, doesn't know what's going on. All of a sudden, they're going to be, instead of buying the truck they came in for, they're going to buy that 4-door sedan because that's what they can buy, because that's what they need to buy. That's what we should be buying, right? Because we're educating them, we're teaching them, and we're helping them. Unlike just saying, I can't help you here, bro.
You're direct on point. We really learned it when Ford had a lot of the Echo Sports in stock, and Mitsubishi had these Mirage in stock. We were able to sell a relatively deep subprime customer a brand new vehicle. Right. And we didn't shortchange the brand new vehicle experience. They got the walk around, the full, show them how to use their sink and show them how to use the Mitsubishi and everything else. Well, what we've done, and you watch this, our Grand Blanc store is about 3.5 years old now. They're top 20 in the nation Mitsubishi dealership in a state that didn't sell Mitsubishis 4 years ago.
Not even a little.
And we don't
do those brands up here.
Right. But we do, and we're going to do 2,000 of them in 2022. And now when I drive around this big circle in Michigan and I see these Mitsubishis on the road, they're now my trade customers, which are amazing used cars for the lot. So you're right on. We started with CAC when we blew the used car lot up, and we're doing 300 cars a month. My brother and I were doing 50 or 60 CAC deals a month each, just blowing them on the road. Then that customer, 18 months later, got into AmeriCredit. Then that customer went from AmeriCredit into a Ford Credit CPO. And our loyalty of that customer is 100,000 times better than the guy that found the cheapest car on cars.com from Grand Rapids, Michigan, 2.5 hours away. So like you said, you can really help your community, and then they want to come back to you when you take care of a customer that way.
You've got to have the inventory.
100%.
I love Matt. You're awesome, bro.
Well, and I'm awesome because
I've learned from all you guys over the years. I grab the little niblets and every piece I can.
I love the business up here with
Mitsubishi. When I was working with Bone Brothers Toyota, I'm talking 1998. Let's go back, time machine back to 98.
Back in the day.
I'm working with Bone, and I get the buyer in there, and I had a lot of authority when I consult the dealership. I answered to the dealer only. I could overrule the general manager when I consult a dealership. And so I said, look, I want to go to the auction, and I want to buy a couple truckloads of Plymouth Acclaims. And the buyer said, we're a Toyota dealership. We're Plymouth Acclaims. I said, I want every Plymouth Acclaim that crosses the block. I want you to buy me some truckloads, because the book value on that car and what you could actually buy it for, there was such a gap in having the right inventory. So what are you experiencing there, Fred?
That's 100% inventory, especially in subprime, right? And when we talk about subprime financing, it's difficult when we talk about, earlier we mentioned the debt to income ratios and how payments are very difficult for subprime customers, because they're naturally going to be $100, $200 more than the average person who's buying that same exact vehicle. And the repayment, when you add that up, I saw a customer pay $700 for it's like a Dodge, I don't know, one of the smaller ones, and I was like, whoa. That's crazy. And honestly, I felt horrible that customer was leaving in that payment. But that's what it was. That's where it was. That's what vehicles are worth right now. This last year's really opened our eyes to holy crap, what's going on with these values on the small cars. When I was high and I was not high. Yeah, high. When I was high, when I was, on a lot and I was high in energy and I was out there just doing deals, right? When I was there, this was this past year, and I was doing all these subprime deals. I've never seen something like this in my life. I've been doing this almost 2 decades. And in 2 decades time, even in 08, I've never seen the values of cars do this, go up every month. Cars that you had 3 months old, normally you would be like, oh God, we got to get rid of these. Now you're like, man, I'm $3,000 good in it now. So it was the weirdest time I've ever seen in my life. But it's inventory, and I've seen the difference. We used to keep a lot of cars for subprime between 10 to 20 grand. It was right in that pocket, $15,000. You can keep affordable.
That's a unicorn today.
You can't find them. That same vehicle is now worth 25, 30. So it's
LTV.
I think we're missing a lot of deals right now because customers can't afford payments right now.
Let me ask you guys this. This is something that, we felt harder at the Ford store, but the next wave of this challenge is the amount of the small sedans that have gone away from 2020. All those will now not be in the market in 23 and 24. Literally, the new cars being sold are $10,000, even not without being over sticker. I'm saying the genuine MSRP of the car is $10,000 higher than it used to be. We're really going to run into that. You think? I think scarcity of those cars is going to get worse before it gets better. I think $50,000 trucks are going to go down when trucks hit the market, but there is no Ford Fusion that's going to hit my lot. There is no Ford Focus that's going to hit my lot, and all the other brands, Malibus, etc. That's probably one of the biggest challenges we're all going to run into coming in the next 18 months. There's just not going to be an affordable vehicle to put that person into.
No, we need our lenders to loan on older units. I'm starting to see that now. You're starting to see that, like, even 12-year-old vehicles are starting to get financed at an okay rate, but that's what's going to happen. Is these cars that we used to have,
well, they stay on the road a lot longer than they used to. I mean, cars are better. Nobody builds a bad car. Yep. There isn't a bad car built.
I agree with that.
No matter what brand it is, everybody
it's
builds
an
a
EV
good car.
It's not that throwaway type of a car that hits 100,000 miles. Now cars are hitting 200,000 and 300,000 miles.
Yeah.
But you're right on the money, Fred, that we're going to have lenders that open up that spectrum and give us a chance to put a customer in that $300 or $400 payment, because that's more of the sweet spot of what that buyer needs. And same difference, if we want them to be better, we want them to be able to afford it. We don't want them to default on it. Yeah. Really do want to source them into a car that works, which is why one of the reasons we work so hard to try to land that customer into that more of a subprime customer and a mid-prime bank. Because if we can shave that 5% interest off that loan, their trade cycle and their odds of rebuying just skyrockets. And I get it. We've got to get a guy or gal a car to get to work. And if it's 25% and through Santander, great. But if we can squeak a way through to make that 21% through another lender, boy, does it make a massive difference. And that's kind of the fight as a dealer. If you're really trying to look to your future, you've got to take care of the customer. Don't look for that one deal. We're all here to sell tens of thousands of cars over the years, not just make one deal happen.
Matt, one thing, I staked my reputation before there was subprime. When I was setting records in the car business, it was because I could get deals bought that other people couldn't get bought, not because I was so great in the box. I could work the lenders, and Bobbie and I were talking earlier about capacity, and so many F&I managers don't even know these words anymore. They don't know how to work the lenders. When I teach an F&I school, I have to teach you how to work the traditional lenders, because a lot of deals going to subprime could have been through a traditional lender if the F&I manager would have known how to interview the customer, how to set up the deal, and interviewing the customer. First time I spoke at an NADA convention was back in the day. I'm going to say it was 1987 in San Francisco, and I talked about how to work the lenders, and I got the highest reviews of any speaker at that convention. Like 70%
Relationships matter.
Because
I can't tell you how many Wells
deals
I got bought because my buyer liked my voice, and I am not ashamed to say that was utilized to get things done. But it worked. You have to know your rate card, know how to get something bought, and know how to read a bureau the correct way to even be able to negotiate a deal at the point that it needs to be bought.
You have to, and that's where it all comes down to. It comes down to this training. There's not enough subprime finance manager training out there.
There's not.
Or just subprime in general. Like, we all need to learn how to handle those type of deals, right? It's the problem is that people, all these steps, well, they're not, it's technology. This is 2022 now.
It's not even hard.
Online within 5 minutes, have all their steps printed off. Don't know what the problem is, you know, and that's the way I look at things. I look at it like it needs to be done a little different.
I think it comes all the way down to the basics of even like how to properly read a bureau, to know what you're negotiating, how to know who takes trans but will take Equifax if you request it, and what's the LTV that's allowed plus the warranty, and kind of be reinsurance. Does it have to be manufactured? There's so many different rules that once you have that and established relationship, you have the ability to know what's going to get bought without guessing and have a conversation with the bank. It drives me crazy the most when we make decisions for them.
I think, Bobbie, you hit something there. You hit something there that Fred talked about. So Fred mentions training, but it's also being a student of business. And 100%. I will tell you that I'm very impressed with how we've grown we do have a finance director. We do have lead finance at all of our stores. Recently, we just had to build 3 finance people for backup, right? Their first month, before they even got to talk about getting into the box, they had to take home all of the bank sheets and learn the banks and come back and tell us which bank is going to give us this best scenario on the oldest car, which bank's going to deal with this type of an income before they started anything. And I think that's some things that dealers miss out on. It's all on paper. Get in there, make yourself the old-fashioned rate book, and make someone actually read it so that when they do write a deal, they don't write the wrong contract, and you can actually get funded.
They need to study the lenders to know what the lenders buy.
Period. Ask your rep. They'll tell you the sweet spot. Hey, could you please tell me how to get a deal bought from you? And
let me go through the checklist. Bankrupts. Do you take low-rank military? How bad is bad credit? What is the credit score income requirements? What is the job requirements? What's the residence time requirements? Do you take low-rank military? I mean, you can interview the lenders and you can find out how to place that deal.
Exactly.
But you got to have those conversations in your finance manager and your desk manager, because in our case, we're training our finance to be able to be back up in the office is the way we look at it. Our deals are hung up front by the sales management. So they're studying and mastering it, but I need my finance manager to know that, hey, this deal, I know you've got it bought here, but this bank over here might give me 3 more months and this better opportunity for back end, and have the understanding to move a deal. So I think there's 2 types of training there, and both sides of it need to be focused on to really do a job. And then every dealer, Jim, what's your biggest complaint about subprime from most dealers?
I don't want those people in my showroom.
Well, all right, let's go to the next one would be is funding. Oh, I had every one of them that tried and had a horrible funding experience. That's really start from the start of the deal. It's not from the end of the deal.
Hey, Matt, let me tell you an old school technique. I invented this back in the dark ages. Everybody was having trouble with stiff, so I got a big manila envelope. And on one side, I printed all the stiffs with a checklist. On the other side, I had 6 additional relatives, blanks, and I had it printed professionally by my printer. And if you have a stiff, you drop it in the big manila envelope. I'm telling you, it kept everything in one place. It just totally rationalized the entire stiff collection. So interviewing customers, a lot of people don't know how to change the credit score.
Bobbie's getting ready to say the right word right there.
Clean packaging. That's it. Get your stips up front, have a clean package, e-contract whenever possible.
A clean package.
You send it with on Route 1 dealer track, they have the checklist for every one of those lenders. Just print one of those off, send it with the lender. Do it exactly the same every single time. I even, to the point, I was so particular, I would write proof of residence on top because I wanted them to not question anything. Proof of income on top. I was very big about that because when they got it, they knew to not double, they just knew, which made that funding go so much quicker, so much faster. Now, there's some lenders out there that are not great at funding. You have to call them yourself, but that is your job as the F&I guy or gal to go and call them to make sure it's funding. What is missing? What can I do to help you today to get this funded ASAP? That's what I said every single time I called them. And they would be like, well, we can't get a hold of the customer for welcome call. And that's usually, if you're good at what you do, that's usually the only issue you'll have.
Fred, you can change your customer's credit score within 12 hours in many instances. In many instances, I can raise their credit score 25, 30, 40 points. I teach it in the F&I schools.
Old school Experian Boost.
Well, no, it's not Experian Boost.
They copied you. They copied you because they do it
Boost
now.
Found out that I was doing this, and believe it or not, their Experian Boost is doing what I've been doing for years, because I was using the rent-a-centers as additional credit. If you rented till you owned, I was getting that, and I was getting that put in their bureau as a retail installment loan. And the buy here, pay here lots. I was getting all the buy here, pay here lots put into the credit bureau within 12 hours. So, and I would use the Fair Credit Reporting Act to get that done. And I could do it within 12 hours. And I would raise a customer's 25, even 50 points. Because I got Experian Boost started doing this recently, the things that I've been using. And the other thing people need to look at on a credit bureau is dangling balances. Because if somebody leaves a balance in somebody's credit bureau, that counts against their score, even if they paid it off. Now, a loan company, and the worst of all is going to be student loans. The colleges forget to close out the student loans. It's still in their bureau and it's still counting against their score. You can call that college loan and get that taken out within 12 hours and the score goes up. And I have done much of that. And I teach that in the F&I schools. Nobody else teaches that.
I think everything you say there also falls into how they become loyal with you. Let's say they went to the other two stores and they had the first guy that says, we don't deal with that type of a client. And the next guy tried, but he just wasn't good at it. And he walks into your store and says, wow, sir, you're a few hours away from us making some adjustments that could actually get you a car loan. He tells that story at the kitchen table to the friends. So all that stuff ties into why subprime can be great. It's extra work. Fred, if you took the amount of hours per car deal on subprime versus the amount of hours per new car lease special deal, it's higher. But the long-term result for the sales rep, the referral, the dealership, the loyalty, it pays off.
And how profitable is subprime?
It's very profitable. I've been doing it for 20 years and I've done extremely well. I've helped dealerships go from nothing to #1 in the state. I've done a lot of things just by implementing a subprime process. And it's not, like you said, it's not a department, it's just a process. And as long as everyone's on board and everyone's doing it, it's good. But it starts from the top. It can't just be the salespeople. Can't just be the F&I. Has to be owners all the way down. Have to believe in the process. And if they do, it's a culture change. It's no longer selling cars. Now you're solving transportation problems. Now you can live every single night going to bed on your pillow, extremely comfortable on silk pillows. You know what I'm saying? Like, it lives good. But it's you get what you give. You're never. It's the thing. You're giving so much more than you could ever imagine. You're going to get back tons. And I see that David is here. What's going on, David? I heard about this legend. What's going on, brother?
Hey, buddy. I had trouble signing in, but I finally got in. I'm on my phone, though, of all things. It won't work on my laptop and it won't work on my iPad. Anyway,
well, it will. It's just you've got your settings are off.
Yeah, I know that. It's me. It's not the device. Anyway,
David glad to be here and joins the conversation.
Hi, David.
David's a good friend of mine. For years, he was the principal with AutoFlex Leasing.
Yes.
How much subprime did you do back when? That wasn't that long ago. How much subprime were you doing, David?
Well, we did zero as long as we were doing 375 new cars a month. We did zero subprime. And then 08 came. And all of a sudden, we went from 375 new cars to 100 to 150 new cars because we went from, I think we had 11 funders at the time that funded leases for us, and they funded down to a 550, which was great, but they all went away except one. And so we went from making money to losing money in about a 3-month period. That's when we began our subprime program. And I'm sorry, I don't know what has been discussed on the call up until now, but the first thing I did was I hired a subprime finance manager. I got him from a Kia store where he was doing 200, 250 Kias a month. And we hired him, paid him what he wanted. And our subprime went from 0 to about 125, 130 a month in a period of 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But we hired salespeople as well, specifically for subprime, and I didn't separate it. I left it the same because the guy that I hired as a finance manager could sell any paper. He was just really good at subprime. So between him and the people we hired, we ended up, it took us about 6 months to get back to where we were, but we got back to where we were.
Okay, so you were basically, David, your salespeople were all A to Z. They did most of everything, didn't they?
They gravitated toward what they were the most comfortable with. And so they were A to Z, but some guys were much better at doing subprime, at handling the customer, and handling mainly the stips, because the stips get you in subprime. So the finance manager I hired and the salespeople that gravitated toward that area were good in that area, and that helped a lot.
Fantastic. Because Autoflex Leasing out of Dallas, you were legendary in the day. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. So, Max, well, what is your thoughts? I'm watching Max over here.
So, what I'm thinking is this: we need to license finance managers. This is a real job where you can actually do some damage if you don't know how to read credit, if you don't know how to place paper, right? And sometimes you, like you said, Jim, sometimes you end up putting a customer in a subprime bank, whereas that customer could have been going through a prime bank if the finance manager knew how to structure a deal, knew how to interview the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So the first point is that we really should push for licensing. This is the right thing to do, and everybody benefits. The dealers benefit, finance managers themselves benefit, and of course the customer benefits.
Max, I don't know if I'm going to agree with that, but I'm going to let you say it.
All right. That's all right. Listen, you need a license to be a barber, right? You need to take a 500-hour class to be a barber. And you tell me that we can promote a desk manager or a salesperson to do F&I, pat him on the back and say, go do it, Tiger. See how John does it. The second point I want to make is this. It's not the banks that are buying subprime paper, right? Because the banks don't hold the loans on their books, right? They securitize them like they did with mortgages, right? They become asset-backed securities and they're sold on the market. So as long as their appetite, right, and the appetite is tremendous on the market, right, they will be buying and buying and buying. Nobody is going to be tightening up anytime soon because the delinquency.
I'm going to disagree with that too, Max.
That's fine. You can say it went up 14%, but it went up from such a low number. The combined delinquency between prime and subprime is still under 3%. You can't do better than that as a lender. And when you chop them up into trenches, right? But when you chop them up into trenches, right, this asset-backed securities, right? Some investors will go for the prime trench because they are risk averse. Others will go for the middle part, and others that want the highest yield possible will go for the subprime. And the final point I want to make is that this crazy increase in used car values only proved one thing, is that people have down payments. Right, something we never believed before. Right, we would write a deal.
Wait,
did they have those down payments?
Matt Lasco. How long have I been teaching down payment?
About 24 years that I've known you, but cash is king, right? My question is, Max, is they all going to have those down payments next year? Because I think there was some just unbelievable amount of stimulus there that allowed that inflation rate to kick off because they had the down. And I think now they're all living in their debt.
Right. Matt, you're absolutely right. The stimulus checks really helped reduce delinquency numbers if you look at the portfolios of all these asset-backed securities, right? The answer, nobody has a crystal ball, right? So I can't tell you whether we'll have another round of stimulus or not. But at the end of the day, the market is controlled by the investors. If there is appetite, they will be buying deep, right? If there is no appetite, they're going to tighten up. And at the end of the day, between the licensed finance managers working people for down payments and knowing your bank programs, you can do really, really well. When I ran a dealership, right, I never distinguished between a prime and a subprime customer, right? Just a customer, right? It's just a car buyer. It's what you're going to do with this car buyer, right? At the end of the day, you just want to sell cars, right? Not everybody goes
Max,
through prime.
I can comfortably say
as possible.
Max, I can comfortably say I disagree with 100% of what you just said.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, let me ask Fred Subprime Hero Lennartz. Subprime is his middle name. Okay, so hey, Fred, interviewing the customer. What's the format? How do we interview a customer? How do you get the information? How do you set the deal up?
I think the setting the deal up is just like asking any questions. What are they? If you start off asking them about their finance past, asking them where they bought their last vehicle, what their payment was like, do they know what their interest rate was looking like, who their lender was, were they good on their payments, were you ever 30 days late? There's a lot of little questions, but I use that as like a building rapport moment also. To sit there and kind of sit like I have empathy with them, and get to understand them, where they're coming from. Because a lot of times people have a guard. Matter of fact, all the time they have a guard up. So you have to find a way to get that guard down. So as I interview them, I just try to ask questions that matter. And then I let them relate to people I know, customers I've helped, let them feel better about where they're at. Because a lot of times they've been to 3-4 other dealerships that just say, get out of here, Bogue, right? Or I can't help you. I need money down or cosigner. They don't really show them a path to purchase. They don't show them how, hey, look, give it 3 months or 12 hours, like you mentioned earlier, on how to be able to purchase a car. But we do need to ask those questions. Those questions allow the guard to come down. Those questions allow them to be honest with themselves, for them to see, almost like painting a picture for them on how success can come to them by going through your process. I think that there's a lot of amazing things that we can do as salespeople, when you're sitting down, building rapport, doing all those things. And then when you get into the finance office and we're talking about payments, we're talking about rates, we're talking about all these things, all that is smooth and transitional if it's done from the very beginning of a deal, sitting there, asking all those questions, getting to know the person, building the rapport with them, allowing them to understand what's going on. And they'll go along with the process because you're being transparent and you're also empathetic because you actually ask them questions instead of saying, hey, your credit score is this. It's not just about their credit score. It's about the people in front of you and how you can help them, whether it's today or tomorrow.
Fred, the biggest ad that I ever ran for Subprime was in Philadelphia. And the headline, this was in the regular newspaper, and the headline, and I ran it all over the place. I ran it on social media. The headline, Victims of Circumstance.
Yes, sir.
Because most subprime people consider themselves to be victims of circumstance. And when I use that headline, David, victim of circumstance, if you had a situation beyond your control, and it was a whole text went with it. And I'm going to tell you what, that victim of circumstance headline drew more people. I put a full, Matt, you're going to appreciate this, GMAC. I put in a full page GMAC credit application in the Philadelphia Inquirer. General Motors threatened to sue me. They were pissed. I said, if you're a victim of circumstance, and we actually had an order form with that ad, full page order form. I'm looking for a 4-door, a 2-door, a truck. We let them order a car, and and it was absolute. We had to put a bus stop in front of the dealership because there was so much traffic.
I gotta just say something because I'm trying so hard not to. I don't know if you can tell in my face. I have a really bad poker face. So when I find something like obnoxious or stupid, I can't help it. So I just want to say, like, I'm reading the comments over here, Jim Fitzpatrick, that's because they got the checks from the government. Like, first of all, who the F is the they? because the majority of the customers this year that are experiencing delinquencies are small business owners. They're educated professionals. They're people who are making a living. They're not a they who's getting a stimulus check. And look, I didn't qualify for one. Maybe you did, so you know what the amount is. But I'm pretty sure it was like $1,200 at a time. So when you're talking about like money down, and you're like, oh, they got their money down that way, like just shut up. You don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh,
this guy is such a dick.
You're too sensitive about that. No, you're too sensitive, Bobbie. Come on.
I understand.
Let me tell you what.
As soon as you think like that, that is why dealerships do shitty with these customers because they treat people like that.
Bobbie,
absolutely not.
The government gave me a $2,800 check. I didn't even apply for it. I got a
That's because you're good at doing your taxes, which is the thing that wealthy people are good at. You're good at doing your taxes. So maybe he got one. And I don't care for the opinion too much anyways, but I will tell you, that is why dealerships struggle with subprime business outside of just getting it financed, is the mindset that if somebody is different, they got a check. Look, Jim got a check and he's not in the they, I'm pretty sure.
I might be in the they. You don't know that.
No.
I mean, I'm sure Jim Fitzpatrick did not wake up today thinking he's going to get abused by Bobbie Herron.
No doubt.
He made a comment about me not too long ago that he made a comment about me publicly not too long ago, or I was just waiting.
He was probably talking about the exact person that Fred was talking about. Now, you notice that Matt's over in the corner. He's already ducked for cover.
I agree with Matt. There are some people who have money down from a stimulus, but to say that it's the bulk of the country makes the conversation political when we're talking about an industry. And that's
no. Let's skip political, because I don't want any desire on political. But you do have to understand that when trillions of dollars are influx into our company or into our country, and I watched people with $9,800 stimulus checks then get another round of them again when they gave them kid tax credits ahead of time. They didn't have $980 in their bank account when these things happened, because we also read all their bank accounts. So yes, some delinquencies are happening on small businesses, but the reason you're seeing that this year is because in 2019, they just went bankrupt. The small business owners and the 70% of restaurants that closed in Michigan, they went bankrupt. The difference being
bankrupt is the word.
I'm disagreeing with at the moment that comment was made in the discussion. It wasn't that.
Too much.
No.
Too much. We've already worked that subject to death.
Hey, Jim, did you guys talk about the importance of getting subprime lenders that will buy a full spectrum of the people that you have come in?
Yes.
Because if a dealer is centric to his finance source, his GM, AC, his whatever, Ford, Motor Credit, Toyota, if he's completely loyal to them, he won't have the right kind of lenders to be able to handle a full spectrum of buyers that are already out there. Mm-hmm. Those people exist and they're alive and kicking, and they need transportation. But most dealers don't have the lenders that will go and do the work, or they just don't want it. The kind of credit scores that you get with it, they don't really. I mean, it's wonderful for a dealer to want that business, but it's also important that the lenders that he's got want the kind of business that he's sending them, or he can send them.
Oh, and I'll jump in on what David said there a little bit. The other reminder is we know we already have subprime customers coming in.
Yep.
Don't watch this show and say, now I'm going to do a full page ads like Jim said, and I'm going to come up with this great thing that drives traffic and not be ready. It's not just the lenders. It's the lenders. It's the staff. It's the inventory. It's the training. You have to do all that first. You'll start delivering subprime cars by doing that. Then you can market.
Hire Fred.
Give yourself. Don't run them in the door if you can't deliver the cars.
You're so right, Matt.
If you're going to do subprime, hire Fred.
Hire Fred. Listen to Matt.
I agree, Matt. You're right on the money, bro. You're so on the money on that. That if you can get all the people to the door, but if they don't know how to serve them, brother, you're going to miss so many deals. The dealership next door is going to get.
You ruin the morale of that salesperson that probably would have embraced this if he had a manager and a bank and a deal that he could deliver. But when you run him through that for 3 months or her through that for 3 months, and then now you say, oh, we've got the cars and the people and everything else, they're already discouraged. They already look at that and start turning into the deal into, well, I'm not dealing with those. That's not my type of client. I just try to warn people to protect themselves for that.
You know, Matt, there's a big problem, and the problem is most F&I people today don't know how to work paper. They don't. They never pick up a phone and call the credit supervisor. They never package their deals. If Route 1 and Dealer Track turns it down, that's the end of the deal. I mean, how many times have we seen that? Route 1 turned it down. Nobody interviewed the customer. I would go out to the customer and I'd say, "Hi, folks. My name is Jim Ziegler. I'm a financial consultant here at the dealership, and I see you're buying a car from these people." And I always refer to the dealership as these people. "I see you're buying a car from these people, and how do you intend to pay for this car?" "Well, are you going to pay for it in cash? Are you going to use any one of my finance sources?" "Oh, we're going to finance with you." "Oh, fantastic. I'm so pleased to have your business." Now, before I present your loan, I've got your credit bureau report right here. And there's a couple questions I know my associates at Ford Credit are going to ask me. I always refer to the bank as my associates. There's a couple questions that my associates at Ford Credit are going to ask me. Do I have your permission to discuss your credit with you? Do I have your permission to discuss your credit with you? I've got your credit bureau report right here. And there's a couple questions I know my associates at General Motors Credit are going to ask me about. Do I have your permission to? I want to approve your loan, but I'm not the final decision maker. So I have to explain. Did you ever have an account with Chrysler Financial? You know, and see, people with bad credit know they have bad credit. They know they defaulted with Chrysler Financial. You don't need to pound them over the head with it. You just say, "Did you ever have an account with Chrysler Financial? Really? What happened there? Tell me what happened." And I would make notes on that. And first of all, it gets information to get the deal approved. Second of all, it brings the customer to the right frame of mind. I'm not prime. You're not beating them over the head telling them they're not prime. You just say, "There's a couple of questions I know they're going to ask me about. Did you ever have an account with Chrysler Financial?" And they look at you and go, "Oh, yeah, I did." "Oh, yeah." And now you're not you want to humble them, but not humiliate them. See the difference in the words.
That's the right.
I want to.
Yep.
Because when they start, there is a certain type of subprime customer that breaks bad. I mean, and when they break bad, you got to take the edge off that attitude.
Yes.
You know, when you got a subprime customer breaking bad, you've got to take the attitude off of them.
Yeah.
And to get the attitude, you know, I don't want to say, "Look, I didn't buy all that shit you didn't pay for." Okay. It wasn't me.
But at the end of the day, you kind of have to put them there, you know, but in a nice way. Like you said, you humble them, you know, but you do it with honor. You do it with honesty. You do it with passion. Like, "Look, I'm here to help you. I want to help you beyond more than you probably want to buy a car, to be honest with you. But I'm here to do that. But I need you to be honest with me. I'm going to be honest with you. And let's just get through this." Because the more you can explain to me, the more I can talk to a bank, the more I can give them a story, the more I can do this to help you maybe get, even if I get you approved, you can't afford the payment, I might be able to get a couple rate points taken off because they hear a story. So give me your story.
Kindness and honesty go a lot.
There's another thing about story. Okay, I'm going to let you talk in a second, Bobbie. I'm going to jump right in here a second. There's a couple of things about story. Stories backed up with documents. David Blassingame knows what I'm talking about. David and I have been friends, and we've worked deals together for years. Documents.
Yeah.
Don't tell them. Go ahead, David.
You're exactly right, Jim. You can't just tell them. First thing, stories sell deals, because everybody likes a good story. Stories sell deals, but you got to back them up with some sort of doc. You got to have something on paper that shows that what you told the lender was exactly how it was. And maybe they were a victim of circumstance. Who knows? But
there are victims of circumstance, and there are people that are habitual second chance customers. I mean,
you can usually see that on their credit bureau.
Yeah,
and that's why they have buy here, pay here lots.
Yeah, exactly. And when you talk about documents, I'm talking about get me a canceled check, get me a letter from your attorney, get me insurance documents to show you were in the hospital that corresponds with the days that you were delinquent.
Yeah.
You know, show me the documents, and I will send those documents before I send the deal.
Yeah.
I've got the documents already scanned in, or in the old days faxed. But I would send those documents to the lender before they even had the deal. And this is not taught today. That's old school. Old school works. You know,
Old school
what do
does
you
work.
think, Fred?
Old school works. But old school works with new technology too. Like you said, scan
Yeah.
it in. You could take a picture, email it to them really quick. You could text it to the buyer if you have that kind of relationship. This is all there for us to use. But the problem is people are too lazy, or I shouldn't even say that. They just don't have the education on how to do it. It's just people need to show them
what it
this
is.
part of the process. It's really all it is. You get scared of things that are unknown. When it's uncomfortable, you're like, oh, I don't do that. Well, we do that. All we have to do is show them how to do that. And that's why it's so key to go back to, even putting up Mac's point. And honestly, I understand what he means. They need to be insured or they need to be licensed, but they just need to be trained. They need to be trained on a consistent level, on a consistent basis, almost monthly, understanding what the bank rates are, the terms, because every month new programs come out with these lenders.
Right.
So you have to be educating. You have to be a person who wants to know more. So that's what it really boils down to right there.
Well, like Jim always has said, it's a knowing problem or a doing problem. And some of the time it might be a doing problem, but right now a lot of it is a knowing problem. So to defend some of the finance, managers to say, like, you don't know how to read a credit bureau, or that you need to know how until you know how, or you know that you need to know how.
Bobbie, that's amazing you would say that, because you can call Asperian, you can call Equifax, and they will send a representative out to your dealership and give you a 1-hour course on how to read the credit bureau. If you are a subscriber to Experian, they'll even bring donuts and coffee and shit. I'm telling you right now.
You have to know that to know it, though, because I can tell you a lot, you know as well as I do, a lot of people don't even know that that's a thing. That's not something that they advertise unless you know. So finance managers watching, like, you hear this, you get that education if you're not getting it in store. And sometimes it's not that the dealer or the sales manager or the GSM doesn't want somebody to be educated, but sometimes they're not either.
Bobbie, do you know what an RSDT is?
RSDT, residual something.
Don't even go there. There are certain codes. There are certain codes you can put in a credit bureau and get additional information if you have a credit bureau machine. And not
I didn't know what that was either. Look, I did finance forever and I didn't know that.
See, I can get a lifetime credit. I can get a lifetime credit bureau on somebody beyond 7 to 10 years. There are codes that you can put in after the report is pulled, and I still teach this, but there are codes that you can pull up. You see, if a person financed more than $50,000, which most cars today approach that or go beyond that, if it's a more than a $50,000 loan, you can request a lifetime bureau.
I didn't know that, actually. Yeah. See, for people watching, look, some of us know things about certain things. None of us know everything. That's why we do shows like this. I thought we were going to get a chance to talk about the new the buy now, pay later loans, those affirm loans and stuff that are supposed to start affecting credit bureaus this year. I'm interested to hear more about that as we go forward too. I know we don't have time today, but
that's not in today's subject. But yeah,
I want to see what happens with it.
That's going to be a subject we talk about. Absolutely. Yeah. David, it is so good to see you. I'm sorry you came in a little late on the conversation, big guy.
Yeah, we're moved in, but we're barely moved in, and I'm sitting in what is my office, but it's barely my office, and it's just going to take a while to get everything working.
We're glad you joined us.
I'm glad to be here.
Matt Lasco, thank you. Matt, what would you like to say before we close this thing out today? Anything we've missed?
No, we did a really good job covering a lot of great things. What I would say is if this is for the salesperson, the finance manager, the desk manager at a store that might have desire to grow in this field, there are millions of sources of ways to be trained yourself. Don't expect your dealer or someone to have to bring them in and just give you this education. Go out and find it.
You don't need no stinking license.
No, you don't need a license, Max. but really and truly,
you're welcome.
Get involved. If you're new, master of 1 or 2 banks and make them your savior for your challenge customer. And as dealers, embrace the fact that you're helping someone get to and from work, or take their kids to school, or pick up their sick mom from the hospital. That's why you're trying to get them a vehicle. And if you
Yeah.
do
Learn
that,
how to
you feel
do
good
this,
about it.
Matt, if a manager wants to learn how to do finance, my complete F&I school is free online. I put the URL on. I mean, there are hundreds of videos by me in front of a live audience teaching an F&I school on how to do most of what we've talked about here today. You want to be an F&I manager? ZieglerOnDemand.com. No charge. I'm not trying to make any money on anybody. All my sales manager training, all my
Just get
F&I
out there and
training,
do
all my
it.
salesperson. Just
Yeah,
get on
those
there.
finance managers listening, put those things in the comments and help your peers out with this too. And I posted the link to the Lasco Ford documentary from like 5 years ago because it's still one of my favorite documentaries I've seen, and I use it in almost all of my trainings. So I would tell you look at that too, because it gives you a picture of a way to look like a part of your community when you are, and then people will trust you more so that when you can do subprime, you can actually close the customer.
Fantastic. Well, guys, we have had one heck of an hour. It just flew by, didn't it? Fred, Subprime Hero Lennartz, David Blassingame, Matt Lasco, and Max Zanan, the Mad Russian. Remember, he came from a communist country, so if he wants government to control everything.
He's wearing off on me today.
That's why
And
he's
Bobbie,
into
Herron,
those
the
shirts.
BBC queen. Everybody wave goodbye to the audience.